Hi. So I'll wait for you guys to get settled and show up. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about how to receive these classes in the best way. So, as always, I talk about various topics, and you can really just get what you need from the time together. So, if words are overwhelming, or the topic's not interesting, or the tone of my voice doesn't resonate, whatever it is, you can just listen to the energy behind the words. You can feel into the beingness together. So, no need to think too hard. I'd rather have people really hear what's being transmitted through their body and their being rather than the words. So, hi, Sarah, Jim, Melanie, Jesslyn, Rosie. Yay. Rosa. So today I was feeling into, it was actually yesterday, what could I talk about? And it seems to me that the very popular topic of what trauma and nervous system healing has to do with awakening seems to be really important. So I'm going to start there. And like I said, there's always a downpouring light and ascending hug available here that will get stronger if you pay attention to the sensations in your body or something soothing. If your body's in a state of overwhelm. And I take nice long gaps so that the silence can be the foreground of our meeting. So along the awakening journey, there's lots of talk about just opening to this, just waking up, just ignoring all the emotions and thoughts and just waking up, just being who you are. Neti. And if you can do that, that's fantastic. But it definitely was not my experience that was very easy to stay in, even if I had moments of spontaneous depth. They would always disappear and I would end up in the ordinary mind. So, what does this mean? So, as life presents us with conditioning as a young one, we go from being this wide open baby in a state of unified consciousness where we can't distinguish between our mother and ourselves or the room. We have no language, and we're just a feeling, sensing, wide open baby. You can feel into that aspect of yourself that's usually covered over. how does a baby perceive this moment? It doesn't have language to describe or label. And it's just in this state of receptivity. And as we're around beings with a lot of mind and their own conditioning in their bodies of trauma and generations of believing in this or that and trauma and every type of familial conditioning, the baby gets exposed to those vibrations, those opinions, those beliefs in a body way. When you're in the womb developing as a fetus, a nervous mother is teaching the baby's nervous system what being a body is like, how to do it. And so it's not our parents' fault or parents before them. It's not about pointing fingers. It's just knowing, how did we get like this? And then as you're older and develop concepts and I should be like this, or I get more candy when I'm like this, or I get good grades when I'm like this, or the girl likes me when I'm like this, or the whole sports team likes me when I'm like that. We contract our bodies, actually bracing, not just in our heads and who we think we are as a personality, but we store all the tension in our bodies and posture into a personality. And we lose the wide open awe of life itself as a gift, as a wonder, as a endlessly unfolding beloved. And it's lovely to develop a personality and loves and interests, but the way that we do it in this culture banishes the wide open awe and simplicity and covers it over with a lot of substance, mental and physical. And then we have trauma. So I don't know what the official definition of trauma is, but to me there's a whole spectrum of traumas that impact the nervous system in a way that has the nervous system stuck repeating patterns to try to unravel itself, to try to heal. And most often it's a inefficient way to heal. It's repeating patterns in the world relationally by picking the people that hurt us over and over or remind us of times when it didn't work so well or really not so well. Or completely avoiding anything that would ever bring that again. So we isolate or react. And it seems to me that the nervous system really needs to know it's safe to sustain an open, rested state. It needs to know that this moment is not the moments of the past that have been treacherous. And as more and more light comes through our meditations and through doing embodied movement work, breath work, we open to different layers of panic in the system, rage in the system, tensions from long ago that surface, and we create new stories about them. Like, oh, I'm now scared of sharks. But you can usually trace them back to original fears from when we really needed to tighten up our nervous system in order to survive or to get along with our parents or be a good little boy or girl or whatever it was that we were so utterly convinced we needed to be. And it's so innocent. So innocent. So if you feel a little bit triggered or you're reflecting on your own life or trauma, number one thing that trauma likes is not trying to make it any other way. So as your nervous system might be activated or buzzing or dropping out, exhausted, it's welcome. Trauma is getting stuck. It's a time in our experience that we didn't have another way to be. We only had one option, which was to contract, to protect, to defend, whatever it was, successful or unsuccessful. And this rested, open state of awe that people call awakening, simplicity, is really similar to a baby consciousness. It's our original, simple, radiating presence before we have a name, before we resist what's here. And trauma loves to meet this part. It loves to feel the being, just being. It loves to meet that bit by bit. So as you feel into this moment, you can reflect on the part that's just here, witnessing. Not as somebody that's witnessing, just the actual experience of it. Like a baby doesn't have a self-reference, like, I'm the baby and I'm in awe. It's just in awe. It's totally its experience. They're one, undivided. And if that includes a nervous system that's wackadoo, freaked out, to the best of your ability, notice safety in this moment. Bring that memory in its fullness, allowing it to do whatever dance it needs to do, just like a little 5-year-old that needs to have a temper tantrum. It's like not to suppress the temper tantrum, but to remind the little one that there's a quiet room, 4 walls, nobody entering or exiting, a non-earthquake ground that's just holding you in your chair or bed or couch. really letting your attention go to what's actually happening right now. And to be even more specific with very sensitive nervous systems, I love to go to the bottom surface area of your felt experience. So the heaviest point on your hip or your pubic bone, touching the back of the chair and touching down into the ground. What exact point of your body is the most weighted? And then hang out there. And with trauma, we can always say, well, when I'm awakened, I won't have this buzzing feeling. When I'm awakened, I won't have this nervousness. But it's right now that anything of that word could ever happen. It's not a you in the future. And that nervousness doesn't have to be gotten rid of. That heaviness or the depression or dullness, whatever it is. Can just meet the moment's undivided presence that you actually are without efforting one bit. No effort required. Just noticing. Feel how quiet that noticing can be without you losing consciousness, falling asleep. See how effortless it is. We don't need to teach a baby how to be here. Like, okay, baby, now you open your eyes and you be here. It's built in. It's our most primary, settled, quiet. And trauma work, especially relational healing, loves to happen in the form of working with people. So meditation alone or in silent retreats is great. And this little part of yourself, this layers of ouch from the past, loves healing in connection with another person, loves rediscovering safe, human. It likes deeply nourishing, simple touch when it's ready for that. It likes animals. It likes relational therapy. It likes dyads, working with another person and trading, being with them, listening. It likes eye gazing. And at first it might not like eye gazing at all and not like touch at all. And the trick with trauma is to never make it do anything it's not wanting to do. Never trapping it again. And finding your way into being in relationship. Perhaps turning sideways or noticing another person with your eyes closed. For those sensitive parts, it's like we all have parts that can just like bulldoze through our sensitivities and get shit done. But we lose the awe of life if we continue to operate from that place over and over again. And it seems to me that very specific nervous system work, like Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory and somatic experiencing, with a person who's also deeply rested in their nervous system, is super relevant to healing trauma. It's essential to not go at it alone, especially if that's the past. The way that you went through it before was likely alone. And it's hard to admit that. It's hard to admit, like, I might need help here. We don't want to do that because we've just been so hurt in those places. And nature and animals and finding a safe, cozy bed can be really nice ways to learn how to be here. And eventually it's really good to reach out. And some people are so sensitive they can't even hear their support person talk. Like it's too much. They just need someone to be with them. Some people are so sensitive, so activated that their nervous system is just cycling in hyperactivation and hypo day in and day out. They can't sleep, etc. And there's some skills in there, like slowly breathing out through a straw until you induce a yawn. Like really pretending you're puckering your lips and you're focusing your energy down on blowing through a straw into the bubbles, imaginary, that you're making. And really opening the jaw and inducing a sigh or a yawn, downshifting the hyperactive one. It's from Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory. And I always joke that there's this big old book on polyvagal theory, and one of the best things I found in it was blow out through a straw. Lengthen your exhale ever so gently. And it just shows how simple life has set up itself. It doesn't need to be complicated, arduous stress on an already stressed out system to learn how to regulate. And being kind and not thinking you should be over it is the best thing that I ever did. Not thinking I shouldn't be self-critical. It's like we can get ourselves so tied up in shoulds, especially once we learn some spiritual stuff. It's like just returning over and over to what's here now. And when we can't self-regulate, we can learn from someone else how to regulate or co-regulate first. I had somebody that I work with say, I can't regulate alone that well, only with you. And it's like, oh yeah, that's how I was. And I was until I wasn't. When I first learned how to cry after being a tomboy, I could only barely peep out a tear when I was with my very amazing mentor. Like a little tiny squeak would come out. And then I learned how to tear some more there. And then some more. And I could never do it alone. Just my system did not feel safe enough. And then finally I did it alone, but they weren't as deep as with her or with one of my teachers. And then they ended up being just fine on their own, in nature, in my bed, until there was a lot less crying happening. And of course, I always wanted it to be a different way and to go faster. And it's just the flight response in the nervous system, trying to go somewhere, called awakening. And awakening is that part of yourself that's here now. It's already happening, it's already here. And there's just stuff on top of it. And that's the stuff that we can learn how to work with. And it can be just your own gentleness that is committed to self-soothing and nourishing, committed to knowing a different life where you really know who you are and you're steady in that. It seems like the nervous system in the non-dual realization is very sturdy. It doesn't rock as easily. It is impacted deeply, but it doesn't have a secondary layer of mentality that adds to the pain over and over and over. It's okay with a heartbreaking or a intense energy coming at it. It moves right through it rather than getting stuck and then chewing on it and chewing on it and chewing on it and chewing on it. I always had something that was just convinced there was another way to live. I just knew it somewhere in my being. And now that I am reflecting on it, it was this being that knew something different. It was shining dimly through the chaos, through the traumas. It just knows that there's another way. There's something real here that's not the personality and the past and the future and where we're going and where we've been and all the imbalance. And even if it's a hint, it's worth paying attention to. Even if it's merely staying out of thinking you're a piece of shit when you catch yourself, or hyper analyzing how you just said something to someone. It's like sniffing that stuff out and having the courage to risk being a fuck up and imperfect for the sake of your goodness returning in this moment. Not to worship the mind's endless perfectionism or shoulding. And I say courageous because we've just been really trained otherwise, so our bodies are not going to back that one up at first. It's like, like the unknown, or like a deep pause in a conversation. Arr. Bit by bit, we retrain the nervous system. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And the trick is not to take anything as real. Like, oh, boredom's here. I must be bored. There must be a real thing that's boring. Oh, it's this thing, and I gotta go fix the boredom. It's like, oh, boredom's here. What is that? Oh, wow. It's like an engine in my belly. It's like, vroom, vroom. Wants me to go somewhere, and it thinks a lot. Wonder what happens if I turn towards that. Hold its hand. Be gentle with it. Will it learn to know this moment as everything that I would ever need when I go somewhere out of boredom, quote unquote, when I leave over and over and over for the next spiritual experience or life experience or work experience or partnership experience, when I leave over and over again. There's nothing wrong with having a life. Of course, we're going to have a life. We don't need to leave. This moment's built in with satisfaction, with okay. And for the last 10 minutes, I just want to sit here with everyone. If you feel called to look into my eyes, you can if you want. If that's soothing, or you can close your eyes. I'm just rested back in my head, like not looking out at you. Just enjoying the whole body, the room, the trees outside. You can let the presence be in the foreground. And welcome anything that is not just simply rest, instead of having a wrestling match with it. You can use any nervous system tricks that you know that I might have mentioned tonight in tonight's talk, or something that you know. Grabbing your feet, rocking. Something simple. Anything but the mind's story of how you shouldn't be thinking, or you shouldn't be this way or that. And if you're looking at me, you can notice how rested you can be with looking. Notice how many little parts come up and might try to shift ever so slightly to be good or to be the right way. See how you can just rest in yourself and not look out. Just be and let the connection happen on its own. It's a little relational healing trick. And I couldn't look at anyone in the eyes for a really long time. Not for long periods of time. And for all that's hopeless in the body or abandoned, like, oh, those other people can awaken, but probably not me, or I don't know if that's me she's speaking to. Just know that that's just a part that got lost. Just a part that was so greatly impacted in its raw, open sensitivity that it doesn't find hope possible for it. It's just a dark room, and it'll come along when it's ready. But it's nice to just have a little bit of space to know that it's just a dark room. And this being that you are has no problem with darkness at all. It doesn't have categories or too muches or impossibles. It's boundless, full, endless, quiet. powerful. And it's who you are before the whole thing gets very complicated. You can deeply support the trauma work that might need to happen to some degree before the body can really know this being as the foreground of experience, before it can live as this that you are, this that we are, this that I am. One thing, one this. And it's ever deepening. Ever unfolding, ever evolving. Endless awe. It's possible for our cells, our nervous system to remember home, home. Thank you for joining me. And if you enjoyed this, you can comment. Sometimes it encourages other people to click on it or peruse that wouldn't necessarily otherwise. And I like putting myself out there so that people who want to find me can, as I live in a little tiny town and I'm not a social butterfly. It's nice to use everything I can to show up and say, hey, I'm here if you need me. So thanks for joining me tonight, and have a good rest.